Risks are managed differently. Some of them can be managed by vaccination, others not. Fraud, economic crime, cyber attacks and non-compliance are risks which are not possible to be managed by a vaccination, for the time being. But if you are interested in what could support, listen to this episode. Good to have you here.
Corporate integrity, fraud, non-compliance, and cybersecurity. Would you like to understand the root causes, detect threats, and take measurements to protect the most precious assets? As a leader, you need to be prepared and stay actionable in the event of an incident. Sonja Stirnimann talks in her podcast, The Human Factor. Corporate integrity matters. To leaders and entrepreneurs who want to have impact, foster corporate integrity, and act as role models. As an international expert for corporate governance and integrity, entrepreneur, and independent board member, she knows the challenges. Let her inspire you.
Welcome back to this new episode of the podcast, The Human Factor, Corporate Integrity Matters. You might be an integrity enthusiast, a business leader, a corporate integrity counsel, or on your way there. I'm your mentor when it comes to corporate integrity with impact, founder of Corporate Integrity Concepts and the Corporate Integrity Academy, with the vision to protect and secure assets, reputation, and actionability, yours and the one of your organization. Why? Because corporate integrity matters. And now let us dive into the question of what, if not the vaccination, supports protecting our organizations. And what is even more important, how to bring that back to our teams for a discussion. Board of directors are not only responsible for overseeing management strategy, but also for the risk management, which is significant in these fast evolving times, especially under the actual circumstances of the global crisis. The pharma industry produces the vaccination against COVID-19. All great. For cyber, non-compliance and fraud risks, there will never be a vaccination, nor are we ever becoming immune to these risks. And that needs to be considered in our responsibilities. Immunity will never be achieved for none of us. Fraud ever happened and will ever happen, no matter what kind of pattern, technology, territory, and so on. And what we have also seen over the last 12 months, the cases increase rapidly. And with these cases also the new patterns of fraud. Some of these new patterns will also be part of the next episodes. And here I would like to thank you for the feedback we already have received regarding the first episodes and what you especially want to listen to. Just reach out via any channels and let me know what you are interested in, and I will take it up in our planning. During a workshop with students, we had an intense discussion about effective prevention as a first phase of a life cycle of fraudulent actions. One perspective led to the other, and we ended up with the thesis that even if we would have a vaccination against fraud, this would never cover the risk. I am sure you can imagine why. Exactly. These new patterns, that is how we call the new sort of viruses, are faster than we are in developing and establishing new preventative measurements. So we are always going to be slower than the ones creating this new business model of fraud and especially also of cyber fraud. We know that the responsibility is on board C-level and management, but not only. And if we are true to ourselves, we know what the increasing pace of the evolving technology, the transformation in business models, and how we will work in the future all means to all of us, and not only to the top level. The pressure is high to keep up to speed for all of us, also when it comes to risks, and especially when it comes to new risks, the ones we would never have expected. In the past 30 years, not only the original value of corporate assets changed, but also the natural risk of these positions. From a rather pure analog and physical processing, we developed to digitalize processing within the organizations and between the stakeholders. With these advantages of interacting more digital and automated with third parties like suppliers, customers, freelancers, and partners, as well as with our employees, the efficiency and effectiveness could have been raised for internal and external processing in many organizations. The transformation towards new strategies and business models, implementing digital components, brings the digitization of a new corporate risk landscape. Having said that, the risk of interdependencies as well as increasing risks regarding intellectual properties, data losses and breaches, infrastructure attacks, and many other patterns significantly increases. Depending on the perspectives, studies and reports, the trend towards increasing fraud risk, which is highly caused by the territory cyber, but not only, is within the top 10 regarding likelihood and impact. Just to mention it here again, cyber does not mean technology only. Behavior is key, also in this territory, and often it's just forgotten, and we would like to push it directly to the IT responsible. No, that's not how we should act. When I support the implementation process of an individual risk assessment for exposed business leaders, I let them discover their own personal risk intelligence. Often it is covered by the external opinions and own wisdom is completely ignored. The risk intelligence is just forgotten by ourselves. Having access to our own risk intelligence allows us to manage risks not only for the individual situation, but also for the organizational one. Keep your own risk intelligence in mind when I lead you through the following different key areas to focus on. The first is the risk DNA, the second one, the competition, and the third, the expectation. So let us start with the risk DNA. What I see during my daily work with clients on board and C-level is that fraud risks are often treated in the same way as other risks when it comes to the question of economical aspects of risk and reward. So my question to you, is it possible and savvy to use this approach too, or might there be other criteria to be considered for these specific risks? I think so. Fraud risks have a different DNA than other risks with respect to their characteristics. For an example, the complexity of the cyber threats is compared to other critical risks much bigger and evolves rapidly, even more rapidly. There are hardly any risks which are growing more dramatically by using the latest technology. The modi operandi are very sophisticated that traditional measurements must speed up. The social engineers are more diverse with different motivation and rationalization. That's also something we are going to discuss in a future episode. All this results in impacting the business beyond data loss. Especially reputation loss is what attacked organization suffers. Next to the financial loss of investigating and recovering the incident with internal and external experts. These risks are different than others. Please do not get me wrong, all risks are different and need individual management. But here we also have to focus on. Let us talk about the more sales-driven, client-oriented perspective now. That's the second one, and the competitive advantage, the pressure on organizations and individuals. Corporate leadership teams are under pressure. That's a fact, and I think it's not going to change. To keep or build the competitive advantage, an adaptation of new business model is often required within a very short time frame. So the pressure increases again. This means for the organization that new technologies are required to become more effective and efficient to serve client needs. With implementing new technologies, following the new strategy and business model, new risks are emerging. Having said that, sounds clear to everybody. But during the normal course of daily business, these new emerging risks are not automatically on spot, nor on the highest priority. Especially not when you are in a crisis. And here we exactly talk about the increase in cyber risk again. Without having a process in place to take up these new risks, the risk landscape remains incomplete. So the maturity level is going to be on a level you would not need to have for future success. A comprehensive understanding and strategic leveraging of risk is inevitable for organizations to keep and increase the competitive advantage. And often that part is just forgotten. With having said that, we now focus on our shareholders and stakeholders and on their expectations. I call it expectation management for a new governance. With all the ongoing transformations regarding business model, I'm convinced that shareholders and stakeholders will focus even more on how boards manage the strategic key risks of cyber and digitization. They have to, because it's their responsibility. It's our responsibility to do so. The expectation of treating cybersecurity as a strategic pillar will become a part of a strong governance. What I often see at the moment is that cybersecurity is a topic, but it's not yet a strategic pillar. For the corporate risk landscape, the board of directors are in full responsibility. Therefore, the risk intelligence of an organization is the key strategic responsibility of corporate boards. Only with these on focus, we can reach the expectations of enhanced governance from the shareholder and stakeholder. This means business leaders must have a comprehensive understanding of the critical risks evolving due to the organization's A, strategy, B, business model, C, interdependencies, and D, the connectivity. With the three perspectives we discussed right now of risk DNA, the competitive advantage, and the expectation management, I'm convinced that the business model's inherent risks can be challenged by all of us. This also leads me now to the take-home assignment. I would like you to combine the understanding of the risk DNA with the potential competitive advantage and fulfilling the expectation of the shareholders and stakeholders. This might sound to be a huge challenge, but can be started with these three following questions for reflection. First one is, how are we internally categorize the different risks to ensure specific risk DNA? What are the competition drivers within our organization? How do they impact the risk landscape? How do we fulfill the expectations regarding the mentioned risks? As often, it will depend on the discussion group, and I would like to motivate you to keep it as diverse as possible to reach the most meaningful results. What I ask my colleagues, my peers, my clients, my students, and of course also myself, is the question, how could the governance look like, taking the critical risk of fraud, non-compliance and cyber just one level higher and treat it more strategically? Our business models change rapidly and the pressure to keep up to speed increases too. My opinion is that there is no vaccination against fraudulent behavior available, no matter what kind of territory. Do you remember a take-home assignment? It is just a start to keep the discussion rolling, because Rome also wasn't built in a day. This was episode number 11 of The Human Factor, Corporate Integrity Matters. Following the belief, corporate integrity secures and empowers individuals and organizations. Would you like to learn more, meet peers and getting qualified? So visit the website Corporate Integrity Concepts or Corporate Integrity Academy. Or do you think this podcast could be interesting for someone you know? Sharing is caring, and we are always happy to welcome your peers to our community. And if you like this episode, subscribe and don't miss any of the future ones. The show notes are, of course, enriched with relevant information, and your connection via any of the social media channels is highly appreciated and will be answered. Promised. And please do not forget, topics of your interest or interview partners are highly welcome. Just send me a note on any of the channels you know. That's it from my side. I thank you for listening. My name is Sonja Stirnimann and I'm your host. Stay curious, actionable, and a role model. Take care and goodbye.